right, hey guys, this is Konstantin and Joe at OxiMedical Studios in marvelous Denver. Joe, thank you for stopping in.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So Joe, we were just talking a little bit before, a couple of questions that we get from customers all the time. So one of the questions we get, how does Tai Chi benefit older adults?
How much time you got?
As much time as you need.
Well, I could do a whole semester.
Let's break it down to a shortened version.
The shortened version. So they're at Harvard Medical School right now. They have a whole division that's devoted to studying Tai Chi Chuan because it's the first time they've really studied something that has multiple active ingredients. And so one of the first things is it is a legitimate moderate aerobic exercise. Nobody ever said you had to be jumping up and down and killing yourself in order to get benefit from physical activity. In fact, if you read the 1996 Surgeon General's report on physical activity, which everybody here has done the reading, right? It's in your audience, they do the reading.
Every single one.
Yeah, my college students, they don't do the reading. But anyway, if you do read the Surgeon General's report on 1996, the whole first chapter is devoted to Tai Chi Chuan. It is by far the world's most popular and also the oldest organized form of physical activity. And people in our country have a misconception and think that you got to be jumping up and down and killing yourself to get any benefit, when that's absolutely never been true. That was used to sell health club memberships and jazzercise classes. But it's never been true in terms of being healthy. And so when you move fast, you also increase the risk of injuries. And so for the Chinese, Tai Chi is appropriate at any age. In fact, it's mandatory for all their Olympic athletes. It's considered the foundation of any kind of physical skill, but particularly useful with older adults because they can't afford the injuries.
And that's one that people don't necessarily have to sign up a membership for. It's something in this day and age you can do from home.
Yes.
But I personally have heard from folks that they've done some of your Tai Chi lessons at home. And some people have mentioned, boy, I would love to go to a class, so
there's additional benefit from just being around people in real life situations. And with COVID kind of on the wane at this point, which is really not, but people are acting as if it is, we have done more beginner stuff out in the parks. That way, at least we can be outside. The risk of transmission is much smaller. And there's something inherently therapeutic about being out in nature anyway. And so there's an advantage. But we did find through the whole pandemic that we do a free Zoom Tai Chi class for people that are just starting out, for beginners. And we find that that's a great way to overcome kind of people's fears. People come to a Tai Chi class or really any kind of physical activity class, and the first thing they worry about is, do I look good? I don't look very good. I'm not very good at this. Well, nobody's good at it when you're starting, but that becomes a barrier to entry. When people can do it online, they can turn their camera off and nobody sees what they look like.
Right.
And it gives them a chance to get their feet wet and kind of get used to it. Until they get to a point where they're comfortable enough to be able to do it with a group of other people. But there is something inherently beneficial from we're talking about the benefits. Well, one of the benefits is the social part with Tai Chi. Tai Chi traditionally, when you become a serious practitioner, you're part of a worldwide community. And to give you an example of the social aspects in Tai Chi, a few years ago, I got a call in the middle of summer from a Chinese national Tai Chi champion who, for a variety of reasons, ended up stranded and broke in Aspen in Colorado. And he started calling around to Tai Chi people in Colorado, and he just expected that everybody would do the Chinese Tai Chi thing and that the people would help him find a place to stay. So yeah, no, we did. We helped him find a place to stay, even stayed with us for a little bit, taught us a bit. But the social aspects of it, in fact, when you do physical activity research on an exercise class in general, Tai Chi in particular, it's really hard to differentiate the benefits from the physical activity from the benefits of the social part and being around other people. And so when it comes to learning any kind of a skill, it helps to be around other people, but it helps in terms of your health anyway. There's very few people that do well as hermits. Most of us, we're social creatures at one level or another, and it helps to be around other people. Then to continue with the benefits, we could look at the benefits for arthritis. So, for example, in our country, when somebody has arthritis, they go to a physical therapist and pay the physical therapist to exercise with them and show them arthritis exercises. In Chinese medicine, you're supposed to do those for yourself, and they're embedded in the form itself. And so there are any number, the main one is bone marrow washing, where you learn how to open up each of the joints and get some synovial fluid in there. So that's the lubricating fluid for the joint. And that way it don't get so irritated to hurt so much. It also is legitimate strength training. People don't think of it. We think of weight-bearing exercises being weightlifting and dumbbells, when you can use your own body weight.
Right.
When you're moving slowly with the Tai Chi Chuan and you lower your stance a little bit, it very much is a strength weight-bearing exercise. In fact, with the Surgeon General's report back in 1996, they found that one, it increases aerobic power. Again, it is a legitimate moderate aerobic exercise just like any other. Another was that it improves strength, and particularly where the doctors are concerned about strength with older adults is in the thighs and in the hips. If you fall down and break your wrist, I mean, the doc at the emergency room will say, well, that's unfortunate, but boy, are you lucky. If you fall down and break a hip, that's a whole nother matter. And so to keep those bones strong is particularly important. Then the other one is balance training. In fact, those three components are now part of the physical activity recommendations for the United States. Everybody is supposed to get some form of moderate aerobic exercise for at least a half an hour on most, if not all, days of the week. They prefer it be an entire hour, but at least a half an hour. The other two requirements are at least 2 days a week to do something that's weight-bearing. And again, it doesn't have to be dumbbells. There's lots of things that are weight-bearing. Gardening can be very weight-bearing depending upon what you're doing. And third one is at least 2 days a week to really work on your balance. I had one in New Zealand now. They have a nationwide program of Tai Chi in every park that's paid for by the government. And I had one of their health ministers explain it to me. He said they found there's no easier way to reduce healthcare costs than to keep grandma out of the emergency room. And by working on improving balance, and it's not just, the balance isn't just a side. In Tai Chi, there are very specific balance training exercises and techniques that are the same balance training techniques that they would use to teach Olympic gymnasts or to teach figure skaters. In our culture, people don't get to, only if you reach a really high level do you get to work with Olympic coaches. In China, the Olympic Training Center is open during the day, and it's their older adults that go in and get the training. They think it's just as valuable, if not more valuable, for their older adults to work on their balance rather than just the athletes.
So looking at blue zones around the world and centenarians and folks that typically live longer, besides some of the things like diet and whatnot, the big things that they point out is relevant is so social aspect as being socially active, which yes. I think this is a big key, stability and stamina. And one of the things they talk about is preventing falls. And I yes. think one of the big things that I've researched with Tai Chi is Tai Chi, one, has a very low risk of injury versus someone who may go to the gym and take a bench press and bench too much and pull
one advantage to moving slowly. When you exercise fast, your body goes into fight or flight response.
Right.
In which case it turns off pain mechanisms so that it thinks when you're in fight or flight that you're running away from a tiger. In which case you can't afford to stop and say, oh, wait a minute, Mr. Tiger, my knee is killing me. And so it makes it to where you keep going and you don't notice the injuries until the next day. That's called delayed onset muscle soreness. Well, young people can get away with that because they're going to heal fairly quickly. As we get older, we don't heal so good no more. Right. And so if you risk an injury like that, you set back your physical activity program by weeks if you get a bad enough injury. Yeah. And so unfortunately, when people exercise fast, it greatly increases the amount of injury. I had one emergency room doctor tell me that you can tell how long a recreation center has had Zumba classes by counting the number of people in the lobby that are wearing orthopedic boots because they've injured themselves in the Zumba class. From a Chinese medicine point of view, if you're exercising for a healthy longevity, it doesn't pay to keep injuring yourself.
Right. Yeah, and I think the key here is what we're trying to teach, what I'm a strong believer in, exercising for longevity, right? What is your take on increasing your lifespan by doing a form of slow exercise such as Tai Chi? I know you're a part of, different studies and you've researched different studies.
Mm-hmm.
What does the science and studies show? For instance, can Tai Chi elongate someone's life by, say, 6, 7, 8
and I
years?
don't want it to seem that it's just Tai Chi. I mean,
Right.
it's my particular cup of tea, and I enjoy it, and a lot of other older adults do. But when you look at any kind of physical activity, when you look at eating a decent diet, when you look at meditation, when you look at all the things that go into a healthy lifestyle, what happens consistently, whether it's animal studies where you're studying rats or chimpanzees versus human populations, is you hit a phenomenon called squaring the curve. When people don't take care of themselves, you typically age at a rate of 2% per year after your 30th birthday. Up until your 30th birthday, the body's getting stronger. After your 30th birthday, we can begin to measure the decline in aging. And the average person that does nothing to take care of their health, they age at a rate of 2% per year, which means from 30 to 80, they lose most of their physical functioning. And that's why so many 80-year-olds have to be institutionalized. When you lose half of your physical functioning, you're what they call the point of institutionalization, that you can no longer take care of yourself and live on your own. Now, most of those people, their family actually takes care of them.
Right.
They don't actually end up in a nursing home. But without the family doing the heavy lifting, they would be in a nursing home. When you do these things, Tai Chi, even yoga, jogging, running, walking, gardening, when you do things to take care of your health, you square the curve. So the animal, even in animal studies, you get to live a good long time and to a ripe old age and die quickly at the end. I don't know about you, but Konstantin, but when my term comes to go, that's how I want to go, is real quick at the end. And we got to speak a few years ago to Julian Leakey, who's, familiar with the Leakey family in Africa? They discovered all the skeletons in early man.
Yeah.
Well, the grandson is Julian Leakey, and this is his area of research. He experiments with increasing healthy life expectancy in rats.
Okay.
And so in his lab, when I talked to him, he had rats that were well over the age of 120 in rat years. Right. And he told me that, I asked him once, well, they're living to this ripe old age. What do they die from finally when they die? And he said, typically what they'll find is rats eat at night. And so they would come in the middle of the night, somebody comes in to feed them, and they would be doing backflips in their cages when the guy comes in to feed them at these advanced ages. And then he said, typically what they would find is they'd come back in the lab at 8 in the morning and find that the rat had died of massive organ failure overnight. It's kind of like if you take care of your car, if you do the maintenance and change your oil, instead of the car falling apart little piece by piece by piece, and you have these constant bills, if you maintain the car, then you can drive. I got a friend that drove a Volkswagen. He's got 200,000 miles on it. And one of these days, it's all going to fall apart at once rather than in little bits and drips and drabs. When you talk to most older adults, that's what they want. They want to be able to live their life and enjoy their life for a good long time. And then when the time comes and the good Lord wants them, die quick at the end, rather than this long, slow decline into decrepitude that unfortunately is considered normal aging. Successful aging is aging at a rate of 1% per year. Right. Which if you do the math after your 30th birthday, that means you'd be hale and hearty, well over 100 years old, and still youthful in your movements and activities and things that you do.
Sure. Yeah. So how long does it take for someone to feel benefits of starting yoga?
Now, with a good Tai Chi teacher, yoga teachers I'm not as familiar with, but with a good Tai Chi teacher, when it comes to skills like balance, instead of focusing on the long-term benefit in terms of your physical activity, for example, it's better to focus on short-term benefits. And so I can teach somebody to improve their balance right now in the next 10 minutes, in which case that is a lot more motivating to continue to practice than it is to focus on long-term benefits and say, if you do this for 6 months, you might notice a difference in your vital capacity. You will notice a difference in the vital capacity, but most people aren't willing to wait 6 months.
So the progression of doing, say, a class, you'll instantly start noticing better posture, better stability. In your perfect world, you have people that go to your classes probably for a long time and still go. How does one measure their success from, say, my stability is better just from the first class, say, to 2-3 years down the road? What are the benefits that you can kind of see over the long span? Where I hear often from people who's like, well, I joined a gym class and it was great. It was fun. I did it for 3 months and then I got bored of it because I didn't see results. So explain the progression of how someone can expect results.
Is the word bored. For some reason, after World War II, Americans took all the enjoyable physical activities, baseball, basketball, tennis, and we elevated them to the level of professional sports. The rest of us, they gave us dumbbells and treadmills and almost went out of their way to make exercise boring.
Right.
In which case, if you're doing the exercises so that someday you might get a benefit, you're not going to do them long enough to get that benefit. If you're doing an exercise because it's enjoyable, that's a whole different kettle of fish. When people go ballroom dancing, they don't count the steps when they're going across the floor. They're just having fun. Yeah. In which case, if they're having fun with it, they're much more likely to continue doing it long enough to get the benefit. We had gone to China years ago. We had taken 52 students over to study in China, and aerial photographs taken over Tiananmen Square at 5:30 in the morning. They've been able to count up to 1 to 2 million older adults, depending on the day, out there practicing their Tai Chi Chuan. And we got to interview some of them. And so if you ask them, you do this for health benefits. I asked the one gentleman, you do this for cardiovascular benefit. He didn't understand the word cardiovascular, so I said, well, just strengthen your heart. And he said, why I need to strengthen my heart? I've been doing this for 50 years. My heart been strong the whole time. They continue to do the exercise, and they continue to do it long enough to get the benefit, and then they continue doing it long enough to forget there was ever a benefit to be gained. They've made it part of their life. I asked one gentleman about enjoyment. You do this for enjoyment. Again, he looked at me like I was an idiot. He said, of course it's enjoyable. He said, do you mean to tell me that Americans don't to enjoy to get up and watch a sunrise? How could they not enjoy that? Well, because we've taught people for 50 years now that exercise is supposed to be hard, it's supposed to hurt, it's supposed to be boring. That's not what it's supposed to be.
So I was talking to a friend a couple of days ago who is involved in, he works for the city of Aurora. They're involved in urban development. Okay. And as more communities open up, they put requirements on builders and communities to put forth an effort to give opportunities for families to exercise outdoors. And one of the things we were talking about was growing up, we used to have a tennis court, we used to have a basketball court, and you look at all these new developments these days, there's no tennis courts.
Right.
There's no basketball courts. There's these, 50 by 50 fake piece of turf to let your dog go and, do its business. And you give your dog a big cage to run around, and they're not putting these things out there. And one of the things he mentioned to me was in Aurora, they have something interesting called flat 14ers. I don't know if you've heard of this, but they have a map. And they have different trails, and I think there's well over 40 of them that have their flat 14ers. It tells you where to start. They have an application. You can walk 14,000 feet, almost roughly about
All right.
3 miles. And they have many of these. And so one of the things that they were talking about was, how can we get people out exercising again and make it fun, right? And so
Yep.
one of the things they were talking about is they looked at the Florida model. So in Florida communities, they have, bocce ball, they have, shuffleboard, they've got the swimming pools. Obviously, swimming pools here in the winter won't do that great unless it's indoors, but they looked at all the different things that are happening around, the continental US and even in Hawaii. And what they all found is, if you put more things outside for people to do in this day and age, more and more people want to do it. But I think you nailed that. 50 years, the last 50 years, the generations before us who raised us, they weren't really...
They lived active, vigorous lives.
They did.
They didn't, my grandparents didn't understand the benefits of physical activity,
Right.
but they lived a vigorous, active life.
Yeah.
And as a result, now, when you look at the aging baby boomers, they have more knowledge. They know exercise is good for you. They know that your diet influences your health. The problem is they don't do it.
Yeah.
Their parents did and their grandparents did it. But the baby boomers right now, one very sad fact is twice as many baby boomers now have to have a cane or a walker to get around than did their parents or their grandparents at the same age. Just having knowledge is not the same as having the wisdom to be able to use that knowledge.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of research like you're talking about where they look at the physical built environment, is what they call it. And Belmar area here in Denver is an area where they build the community deliberately to make it a walkable community.
Right.
They put in sidewalks. Most of the neighborhoods now, they don't even have sidewalks. Most of the new schools that have been built by either Aurora or Denver Public Schools, they don't even have a gymnasium or a playground anymore.
Right.
They want the kids sitting in front of their computer for 8 hours.
Yeah.
You try sitting and having a fourth grader sit in front of a computer doing math all afternoon, and time how long it takes before you have a behavior problem on your hands. If you don't let them out in the yard and let them run around and get some of the vinegar out of them, there's no way teachers can handle that. It's just very short-sighted.
Yeah.
And so, one of my soapbox issues is I want people to get back to doing enjoyable physical activity. When you look at cultures like China, where they do the physical activity, if you go to the parks in the morning, you'll see people doing Tai Chi, obviously. You'll see all kinds of other martial arts. You'll see ballroom dancing. You'll see tennis, badminton. They still believe you will not see dumbbells. You will not see treadmills. They don't believe that exercise should be boring. They believe that exercise should be as interesting for the mind as it is for the body. I had one of the Chinese coaches explain it to me this way. And he said, if you take a gymnasium and on one side of the gymnasium put a bunch of dumbbells, and he actually took a Chinese English dictionary and wanted to know if he was misunderstanding the meaning of the word dumbbell. Mm-hmm. And he said, on the other side of the gym, put a bunch of Tai Chi swords. Now, the Tai Chi swords are made real flimsy.
Yeah, sure.
They're not meant to be weapons.
Yeah.
But put a bunch of swords on the other side of the gym, put a bunch of children into the room, which will they play with? He said, if you keep the exercise interesting for the mind, you can get people to exercise as much as you want. But if you make it boring, it's only a matter of time before they quit. Yeah. And that's unfortunately the problem that we have these days in the United States. We've made our video games more interesting than our own lives. And so, of course, that's what our children want to do. I do a lot of work with some of the martial arts clubs in town. And I was at this one martial arts club. My daughter was doing whatever. And there's one boy there who's a world champion in drunken style Kung Fu. And he had one of the little kids come up to him and ask him, what do you do for exercise? You're in such great shape. You're a world champion. What do you do for exercise? He said, exercise? He said, that's stupid. I hate that crap. I don't do exercise. I do Kung Fu. I'm a superhero. He told him, you look at your video games and pretend you're a superhero. I get to be a real superhero. That's a whole different attitude. Yeah. And it's not like he didn't play his video games, but his wushu, his kung fu came first. And we need to, as a society, get back to that idea of taking control of our own lives and finding things that are enjoyable that we can do. I'm fortunate in that I found Tai Chi when I was a kid. And because of the martial arts aspects and whatever, it's managed to hold my interest for many, many years, as well as a lot of other older adults that I work with. But the one saying in Tai Chi is like licorice, as not everybody likes licorice, but the people that like their licorice really like their licorice. And so I try and doing something like this to broaden it out a little bit. Doesn't really matter if you do Tai Chi, if you do yoga. What matters is that you did something. Find something that's enjoyable and do it.
So the big thing that I want to sum up from our whole conversation is it's officially summer as of yesterday. It's officially summer everywhere. You know, we probably have warm weather in most of the U.S. for another 4 or 5 months, give or take, where you're located. Yeah. It's super easy to get out. It's super easy to go on YouTube. Joe you have a vast library of stuff that we've done with OxiMedical for Tai Chi. We'll put your website up for our folks to sign up.
That's especially useful for people that have lung problems. Because again, we did emphasize for you all the lung exercises.
Yeah. So what the take here is people can go on and sign up through your website. You still do Zoom classes, right? Yes. So they can do Zoom classes with you, which are free.
Yes.
They can go on YouTube and look up, videos of Tai Chi also with you doing Tai Chi and elsewhere. And they can go outside and do brisk walking if Tai Chi isn't their cup.
And even I would back off that a little bit, even leisurely walking.
Right.
To just take a leisurely stroll around the park is a great place to begin. Yeah. And rather than focusing on trying to exercise to a certain level, focus on the enjoyment. Find a nice park in the neighborhood that you can go take a walk. In which case, if it's an enjoyable area and you got plenty of birds and trees and whatever to look at, you don't even notice how much physical activity you're getting. And then over time, you'll find yourself walking a little further, a little quicker, and that's where you begin to kind of build up benefits.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Joe. This is a good topic that we wanted to go over. I have lots of questions about it. We wanted to make it easy for folks to understand.
Mm-hmm. Name of the game is have fun.
Yeah, shouldn't be intimidating.
Mm-hmm. Worst comes to worst, get out your old dancing shoes, put on some old Grateful Dead records, and go at it.